Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today I'm finally talking about Pokemon again. With the impending release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, our 9th generation of Pokemon is set to change that traditional Pokemon formula in a lot of ways. Especially after Arceus, I found myself wanting a more fleshed out, deeper, more realized version of that open world style of Pokemon. They introduced a lot of new mechanics. It was cool, but I wanted to see them go deeper on that. That seems like it's possible in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. With that, there's a lot of details that are very useful to know going in, especially when it comes to which version you should play, because there are some noticeable differences. So here's my things you need to know before you play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Let's start by talking Pokemon though. There's new starters, of course, but there's also new regional Pokemon, new exclusive version Pokemon, new Pokemon types, new legendaries, and those new mechanics tied to all of it. There is a lot going on here, so it's going to be our first topic, starting with those new starters, and I'm only going to briefly cover these, as I'm sure any interested Pokemon fan has already had a nice look. We have our starting type of Grass, Fire, and Water. Our new grass type is Sprigatito, the green cat-looking creature, which is apparently capricious and attention-seeking. Not exactly a kind description. Interestingly though, its fur has a similar composition to plants, allowing for a type of photosynthesis, creating energy from sunlight, which is neat, and it has a special ability to release an aroma that mesmerizes those around it to make opponents lose the will to battle. Next, we have our new fire type, Fuecoco, a fire crocodile, which is said to be a bit laid back and slower paced. Its scales absorb heat, which converts into its own fire energy, and those scales remain warm and can grow extremely hot. Well, also, that flickering on its head is essentially fire energy that's leaking out, much like a Charmander's tail. When excited, Fuecoco will spout flames from that spot. Lastly, we have our new water type, Quaxly, a serious-mannered Pokemon, tidy and determined to keep its head clean, hence that incredible pompadour-style hair. Due to its water nature, its body is sort of glossy from the gel it secretes, keeping it clean. Its power comes from the legs, though, which are strong enough to swim through strong currents, and in battle are used to kick opponents in fast combinations. Overall, I think they're well designed with some interesting details, and while I normally would pick fire types, I do think the little plant cat is quite charming. Obviously, a big question is now, what are their evolutions? What are they like? What do they look like? But for now, we're gonna have to wait and see. On the topic of Pokemon though, we're gonna also have new regional Pokemon based on Paldea, also known as Paldea forms. We haven't seen too many examples of this yet, but a clear example is the Paldea form of Wooper, which is normally that light blue, but in this form, it's a deep purple to brown, suggesting poison as its new type. Even its antennae are shaped like bones in relation to the poison type skull symbol, so there's cool symbology there. We'll see other regional Pokemon in the full game, but rumors suggest we might even see future and past versions of known Pokemon, in line with the main theme of the game we're going to mention later. Back on topic though, as I mentioned, there's exclusive Pokemon to each version. New Pokemon like the Armarouge and the Ceruledge. Armarouge is a new fire physical type, wearing yellow armor to match its dark red theme, which can only be found in the Scarlet version. Its new move, Armor Cannon, is said to be a fire type special that uses both the pauldrons, moving them into its hands, to fire off a sort of cannon blast effect. While Ceruledge is the Violet exclusive, a darker colouring with these blades of ghost fire to match its fire ghost type. Also wearing armour, but it's more focused on the swords of the ghost fire. It can transform them using its new move, Bitter Blade, which focuses the power into a slashing attack. That has a lifesteal effect, healing half the damage that it dealt. Very cool. Finally, we also have another new type of Pokemon to be mentioned, the Terra types. This is the new gimmick of this generation, this Pokemon game, making Pokemon shine and glimmer like gems. Pokemon here can terrestrialize into these crystal-style creatures. A Terra jewel will then form on its head to reflect whatever Terra type it is. Now, normally that would line up with whatever its regular type is. So if it's a fire type, you might see sort of candles on its head. But unique Terra types not matching the original type can occur. You can control this by terrestrializing a Pokemon mid-battle though, changing its Terra type. Potentially that can give you an advantage if you're able to use a move that matches that Terra type, dealing bonus damage if so. We seem to do this using an orb called the Terra Orb that triggers that, but after that will need recharging. We do that by collecting Terra crystals in the open world or at Pokemon centers when in town. To capture unique Terra types though, you'll need to engage with Terra raid battles, which I'll mention later, but essentially those seem comparable to max raids in Sword and Shield. Lastly, for this Pokemon focused topic though, it's finally time to talk about the new Legendaries. Koraidon and Miraidon are the Dragon type Legendaries. Koraidon is found in Scarlet and is a dragon fighting type, while Miraidon is found in Violet and is a dragon electric type. These represent the theme of the game again, that mix of past and future. Kodai, similar to Korai in Japanese, means ancient, and Mirai means future. While we don't know everything about them yet, they are going to be a vital part of the gameplay and seemingly early in your playthrough at that. In Arceus, we had these huge areas to explore with mixed terrains of hills, rivers, mountains, and so on, and you could not explore them fully at first. But as you progress the game and unlock new Pokemon, they would unlock new traversal options. So then you'd be able to climb and swim and fly to then get through those areas. Well, in Scarlet and Violet, that mechanic is coming back, but the legendary Pokemon here, they fulfill that role all at once. They'll be able to transform to do everything. We'll ride them across the land. We'll climb cliffs on their back. We'll swim across water and fly through the sky. The big question is, how will this work? Are we going to unlock the legendary Pokemon after a specific path, or will we just get them very early on? Seemingly, we will. But maybe we'll slowly unlock the new transformations by progressing the game, much like Arceus. You might be wondering, if you don't know, why would we need such transportation methods? That is due to the nature of Scarlet and Violet being the first official true open world Pokemon game. We play in the Paldea region, which is a unique design for Pokemon. You see, compared to Arceus, which was an open world style of game, you had those massive areas to explore, but ultimately were separate from one another. You would be forced to progress the game to unlock a new area, then explore it in a limited way until you had the traversal methods I mentioned. In that case, you'd soon become familiar with invisible walls all over the place, barriers limiting your area of play. By contrast, Scarlet and Violet is attempting the real deal. Massive open spaces filled with Pokemon with no borders for towns, and it's all connected in a supposed seamless way, meaning you can travel anywhere, at any time, in any order. There is no way that you need to unlock things first. That allows for freedom of exploration to go at your own pace and complete the game in any order you desire. Much like Sword and Shield or X and Y, the world and its design is actually inspired by real world places and culture. S&S was inspired by the UK, while X and Y was inspired by France, and now it seems like we have Scarlet and Violet inspired by the Iberian Peninsula, which in terms of countries is Spain and Portugal, so its architecture and terrain is reflective of that. What we're actually doing within that freedom and exploration then is completing 3 major objectives or paths. Essentially, it's 3 main stories to complete, which surely all need completing to finish the game in true. The first path I'll mention is a classic one: beat the 8 gym leaders and become the current champion, with some requirements to allow you to actually challenge the gym. It's standard. On the other hand, we also know about the Path of Legends, which seems to take the big boss battles of Arceus and use them here in some way, which is exciting. The concept had you avoid the massive attacks of these powerful Pokemon while barraging them with powder you throw at them to calm them, occasionally doing Pokemon battles during. A fun and new concept, but sadly shallow and extremely repetitive in my opinion. So here, the path Legends might take is that and run with it a bit more, give it a bit more depth, hopefully. Facing off against massive Pokemon again in a quest to find a sort of legendary healing herb. Like I say, I like that Arceus style of battle, but I hope it's improved because it did have good potential. Lastly, the other path is the path of Starfall Street, which in essence is the new Team Rocket storyline. Team Starfall are found around the world in different groups with their own leaders, and I imagine you'll bump into them and need to take them down as you go. What's great again though is that you can do them in any order. You could do some of one, leave, go do some of the other. Whatever you choose, there's no forced linear path, which is cool. Now let's talk about a mix of different topics, starting with multiplayer, which is back again in its usual way in which we battle other players online or trade with them, but now we can actually jump in game together and explore the world all at once. In this mode, you can have up to 4 players in one session together, and you'll even see them with their lead Pokemon following them around. You'll gather at Union Circles to then go explore from, and in that online play, you have that huge world to explore, and so you'll be able to use the Legendaries as mounts, all of you, all at once, no restrictions. The big question though is how will this work in, say, battle? Will you be able to help each other? Can you progress the story in someone else's game for yourself, or are you working on theirs? We do see some multiplayer in the multiplayer battles in the Terra raids, but it doesn't seem certain otherwise, so we'll have to wait and see on that one. But now I've mentioned them a few times, let's talk Terra raid battles, which are going to be a major aspect of the game and potentially the end game. In these, you team up with other trainers. That could be NPCs or other players, and you'll battle against special huge Terra Pokemon. Within that, there is a time limit, but there's a nice feature in this raid concept in which you can pre-select your next move, so the whole battle should be smoother for everyone involved. It's good they've made that quality of life improvement. I think it'll really impact the downtime you'd normally experience in a raid situation. But as I said earlier, these raids are going to be a great place to try to capture new Terra types of Pokemon to potentially work into your team or other purposes like progression. So I imagine it'll have an important place in the gameplay. But lastly, here's a quick talk on the exclusive details based on which version you're playing. Firstly, the Professor will reflect which version you're playing. You will have Sada in Scarlet and Turo in Violet. They reflect the theme, so Sada is more primal in design, while Turo is a bit more futuristic. How much the story will change based on these themes, I'm not certain yet, but surely it'll play a role. Within that, you actually attend a different school depending on which version you're playing, featuring different color themes and visuals. Scarlet School is named the Naranja Academy, while Violet's is named the Uva Academy. I believe that's orange and grape in Spanish. Following that, you start with different coloured clothing, a red tie and shorts for Scarlet and a purple tie and shorts for Violet, obviously, but even the record books will have their own red or purple theme based on which version you're playing. Of course, there's also exclusive version Pokemon as we talked about earlier, so there's a few interesting differences between the two, potentially more that we've not seen yet. But yeah, in conclusion, those are all the main details I think you should know going into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I think it's quite interesting. I personally think Violet is a bit more up my street with the Pokemon and the theme and the color schemes, but I still find myself having plenty of questions for the full release. Like, how will multiplayer truly work, and what about capturing Pokemon in the open world? Will it work like Arceus with the heavy balls from up close, although shooting quick flying balls to catch the flying Pokemon? That made me feel a bit more like a real trainer in the world, and I hope to see more of that. Also, if there's anything important you think that should be included in this video but wasn't, then drop that in the comments. We are going to be covering the new generation of Pokemon in full here on the channel with the release, but until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.